This is the Balanced Growth Show with Dr. Travis Perry, helping successful business professionals like you achieve balance in their lives.
Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Growth Show. I'm your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Today we have with us Saul Rosenbaum. Saul has 20 plus years in the mechanical engine or energy engineering space and is the owner and managing engineer of SR Engineering and Consulting. The firm provides engineering support within the commercial real estate financing world and focuses on various green loan programs as well as property assessments. Saul also has a passion for mentoring younger engineers and is the founder of the Engineering Mentor. This community acts as the resource to help younger engineers find their way towards a successful career. Saul, welcome to the Balanced Growth Show.
Thank you, Travis. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little about your story. I mean, you're very niched into what you do. In fact, I had to ask a lot of questions in the pre-show to really figure out what it is that you do. It's so niche, which is awesome. It is part of what we'll dive into a little bit later of the genius of your marketing. But talk to us about how did you get involved in what you're doing today?
Right. Well, it's interesting because like you mentioned, I've been involved in the energy engineering world for over 20 years now. When I graduated from engineering school, I was looking around for various jobs, and I found a firm in Baltimore that worked on energy savings performance contracting. And to be honest, I really didn't realize what they did. I thought it was more like HVAC design or mechanical equipment within the building, that type of stuff. And I didn't really realize that it was all within the energy framework. And so, yes, we were designing that equipment, but it was in an effort to save energy and help various, at the time it was government buildings and various facilities, help them save energy and be able to fund these projects. And so that got me into the energy engineering world, where in one way or another I've been in since. And it was probably around 2007, 2008, when I was still doing some energy engineering work. I had started my firm, and I went to go talk to one of my clients, and that's how I kind of slipped into the other side, made it within the mortgage finance world. Before that, it was really just about energy efficiency. And then in the past 15 or so years, it's been within the mortgage finance world. So a lot of the same type of work, but just the way you frame it and the types of clients that I have changed over the years.
Excellent. I appreciate you kind of getting us to this point. Why would you say you were interested in this space, in this consulting space?
I do find the energy efficiency side of things very interesting because it combines, some technical engineering side of things, but it also combines that with the business side. And what I have found over the years is that I really enjoy the business development and marketing side of things, which is what honestly led me to my firm and the way I've developed it, because I want to be in charge of some of the technical side of things. I don't want to be completely hands off. However, I don't want to be involved in technical stuff all day long. So it really helped made a good combination of the two in this world.
Yeah, I like it. So let's talk about how this combination and what you do in your field has really allowed you to niche so much so that it's actually it's difficult to put you in a box. Are you a consultant? Are you an engineer? Are you in, financing? And that's kind of where I was kind of pegged you as at very first. But talk to us about how you created this niche and how that's allowed you to grow and scale your business.
Right. So within the mortgage finance world, there are other due diligence firms that are providing different services as well. Where I've really thrived is that I have helped a lot of these firms with a lot of their overflow work, but also that we're able to help them with the energy engineering side and the PCA side, which is not something that a lot of their providers can combine. And so it's kind of helped us be that resource for them that they can turn to regardless of the project.
Nice. Yeah. So, I mean, there's you're from my take and understand is like you're trying to help these firms over a long period of time. These are long-term relationships. It's not come in, do consulting work for 6 months, and then leave and find new clients, which is a different, way of doing business. And quite honestly, there's some security there, right? Knowing that, hey, you're here to help this firm grow and scale, that, as they're growing and scaling, to make sure that they're, staying within the guidelines, and consulting with them on these green loan programs. Talk to us. How has that changed your perspective as a business owner, as you are really focused on them growing and supporting them versus, trying to find clients all the time?
Well, I think one of the things you mentioned there was, the difference between an individual project and like that 6-month project, and how that relates to your security as a like that, those feelings of being secure, having a set project. Most of our projects, once it lands on our desk, we're finished with them within a day or two. It's rare that a project drags on any longer than that, the actual work that we are doing. And so the security for me really comes through the relationships that I have with all of my clients, that I know that, okay, you hired me now, that's, a $2,000 project, thanks for playing, but I know that there's other ones coming down the road. It's not that, okay, I have to go fight for each one. Whereas you're right, if I did have a 6-month project, you can sort of wait 4 months before you have to do any business development. But because I've developed the relationships with my clients, yeah, obviously it's going to ebb and flow, but I know that, okay, every time they need this type of project, they're coming back to me, and you're going to have those projects if you have the solid relationship with them.
A great point. So for you, as we're looking at, how does you grow and scale, relationships are key. Sounds like solid relationships with your, firms that you're working for and consulting for is the key. Talk to us a little bit about how that has helped you to grow your own business, those relationships focused, relationships here.
Right. Well, I'm a very big believer of networking for the sake of networking. I'm not going to, jump on a half-hour call with any random person because I just simply don't have the time. But I will connect with almost anybody on LinkedIn. I will begin the engagement there. I will start, some emails, and then see where things can lead to. One of the things, you mentioned that I do a lot with younger engineers. A lot of them will wait until they're looking for a job before they start networking. And I really try to help them understand that, what, if you start planting the seeds, building the foundation beforehand, you're going to have people who you can turn to, not just for a job, but just for general guidance, for advice, or, what should I do next in terms of your career. And so looking at networking as, sort of, I call it business friends. It's a lot more than just, okay, a transactional thing that this is what I need from you right now. And if you can't give it to me, I'm moving on to the next person. It's more along the lines of let's meet. There's a potential here. You're within the general demographic of somebody who could, we could work together. We could help each other out down the road, and just, see where it goes. And I find that leads to more genuine relationships. And in the long term, I find them to be much more beneficial than a transactional view of networking.
Yeah. Yeah. You slipped there into LinkedIn, but I mean, it's true. It
It's
seems
true.
like,
It's true.
Sometimes it's like, wow, I connect with so many people. People are following you, yet the quality of those relationships really depend on the individual. Do they see you as someone that can help them, and vice versa? Or are they just genuinely want to stay connected and support you? I think the genuine aspect of that is key. And it's quite honestly, you don't find it. I mean, it's kind of like good friends.
Right.
Most people.
Listen,
yeah. Go ahead.
right. I think, in a vacuum, having more followers or more connections, more people in your sphere is probably better than less. However, you're right. It's all about the quality. How do you engage with those people? And that's what I tell people. If you engage with somebody and just help support them, talk to them, like you're not trying to get something out of them, that's going to help develop that relationship, which down the road, when you do need something, you're much more likely to get it.
Yeah, there's no question. There's no question. And as I was thinking about this too, like genuine friendships, like personal friendships. Yes, we've got friends and followers and all sorts of social media, but people really are fine with one or two really good friends. The research shows this when it comes down to personal development, human development, one or two really good friends make all the difference. Yet there's such a push, right, to be an influencer, to be, out there on social media. It doesn't typically reflect even business relationships like LinkedIn, as that's where we connected. I'm very much focused on let's create that relationship. Let's make sure it's a good fit. So I love that you're talking about this. We're gonna kind of switch and go into personal relationships for a second. In the pre-show, we talked about some of the struggles that you do have with balance, which everybody does. Welcome to the world. Uh, and,
Yeah.
balance is not equilibrium. Balance is focusing on your highest priorities. And one thing that you mentioned to me as you said you were reading the book and where you might struggle is a little bit with your, time with your own spouse, your own relationships with your spouse, as balance can sometimes be, a challenge. Talk to us a little bit about how that relationship might suffer when you're out of balance.
Right. Well, I think that it's not something that happens overnight. It's just it builds up, and then you realize, oh, wait a second. I think I had mentioned all of a sudden you're like, wow, we haven't spent one-on-one time without the kids, without the work, without anything in a month, in 2 months, whatever it was, and just all of a sudden sneaks up on you. And I definitely had this issue, you know, leading up. It was about 10 years into my firm, and that's when I made a switch that we can discuss as well. And it was a big problem because I think some of it was perhaps a lack of confidence that the next jobs would be there. And so every time a new project came in, it could be late at night. I'd be like, okay, yeah, yeah, we could take that. There was never a no. It was always sure we can fit that in, thinking that you sort of had to take it. You had a responsibility to your clients, and that responsibility to the clients sort of overtook the responsibility to whatever personal things you had going on, and it was not good. And I'm happy that I was able to recognize that, make a turn, and then was able to come back to the consulting and sort of build it in a more, more methodical manner and really think about it as I scale.
Yeah, so let's talk about that burnout point. What was it that would you say caused that moment to say, no, I need to go back to consulting. This is totally burning me out. What red flags did you see? Was it your wife? Was it your family saying we're not seeing you anymore? What would you say that it was really that kind of aha?
I think it was a little bit of all of that. So this was in 2017. It's when it sort of hit that peak. I do remember, there was one time where like you just get very frazzled with work, very stressed out. And I do remember my wife saying to me, she goes, "You realize like, you're snapping at our son. Like he was just trying to show you something and you're just snapping at him. And you realize like, wait a second, like obviously that's not the way I feel about him, but you're just so stressed from work that that was sort of your reaction at the time because you had to get back to what you were doing. So towards the end of 2017, one of my clients in my consulting firm actually reached out to me and said, listen, there's this green program with one of the major lenders that we're going to be doing a lot of work with. We want to hire you as the manager of the green and energy division of our business. And so at that time, I was, from a financial standpoint, my consulting firm was doing fine. Like I had no complaints on that side of it. But I realized, you know what, need to shift to something different because this is going to completely kill me, kill a lot of relationships. And so I did that. And I don't know where it would stand now were it not for Corona that made some changes in that business. They're still a client of mine, but I'm not there full time. And so it was in May 2020 or so when I kind of changed my relationship with them and went back to having my own firm. But now I'm much more cognizant of what went wrong the first time and not letting that happen again.
What systems or, safety measures have you put in place so that it doesn't happen again, so that you can keep a better sense of balance?
Well, I think that some of it is a bit of a mindset shift and recognizing that, wait a second, how many years did I go without a bad month? And so to think that you have to take that project was completely, it was not the truth. It's just sort of that story I was telling myself. And so I think that having that mindset change, that was very big. But also, you know, sort of giving yourself permission to say no. And it's weird because it sounds kind of stupid. Like, you could say no, like it's your own business. Anybody can do that. But sometimes it's actually hard when you have your own business to say no to somebody. Say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Here's what we can do. And they know that you're there for them, but there are times where you're just simply not able to help, and you need to take that step back before you get too far down that road towards burnout.
Nice. I appreciate you bringing this up. I mean, saying no is difficult for a lot of people, especially if they're business owners or they've got a mindset that's not focused in abundance, right? If they have a limiting mindset that is worried about where the next business might be coming from, or they don't want to lose a client and they haven't established boundaries, there's some definite issues there I've seen in business owners over the years, coaching, consulting them. To, kind of bring this back to the family, it sounds like you've got some, some safety measures, some things to help you, some mindset tools that you've developed or, incorporated through the years. Uh, how is your relationship um, when you are out of balance with your wife specifically? What are the big, red flags that you can see? Like, oh man, yeah, we're not spending as much time together as we should be or like to be. What do you think goes off in your mind or in your everyday?
Right. Well, I would think that I think it's more of a feelings of disconnect, that as you start to move down that path, then you start to realize, because you haven't talked, there's like the little things that you start dropping. And then I don't think it's any one individual, like, okay, that was the one point, but over time it just starts to build up. I know what actually worked for me, we talked about some of the mindset shifts, but also I'm a big believer in sort of the studies that talk about, you sort of fill the time that you have with the tasks that you need. And so I found that blocking out work, sometimes I would work the other way, say, okay, at 7 o'clock, I have a family birthday party. I have to go to that. Let's block that out. But then you sort of work back, like, okay, what work do I have to do to be able to be relaxed at that party? And so initially it was sort of blocking out that time. This is a non-work time, but I found it actually worked better for me to say, okay, this is work time. This is, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. This is the project that I have to work on. And I would close other windows. I'd move everything out of the way and only focus on that one thing, knowing that I have to get this off my plate before I can go to that event. But then doing that, I didn't even have to put that I put it in my calendar, but it wasn't specifically the party at night that was driving the focus.
Yeah. Deadlines. I talk to my clients a lot about deadlines. If it doesn't have a deadline, it's not going to get done. Just because you're exactly right. You mentioned it's actually Parkinson's law. It's the amount of time that you create for a project, a task, something. You tend to fill that amount of time. We did this as kids in school. We did this as college, kids trying to figure out how to make sense of our finals and midterms, and we just put stuff off. They're like, oh yeah, we don't necessarily need to do this for 2 more months. No, you should be working a little bit at a time on this project. So the night before, you don't spend 7 hours, you don't get sleep, and you show up, red eyed and not prepared for that presentation. So I agree with you. I think that can absolutely kill us as business owners is we don't put the boundaries in place, the deadlines and things. And you're exactly right. It over time can erode our personal relationships. What have you found on the flip side for you and your wife that helps the two of you to make this connection so that you can keep those feelings of connection, even when there are some stressful times in business?
Right. Well, I think that we sort of overestimate how much time you actually need to make that connection. That if you only have 10 minutes, sometimes it can be easy to just push that off and just say, okay, whatever, I only have 10 minutes, I'm just going to go straight to the office. But there are times where we'll start the day off and just have, let's just do coffee in the backyard, quick. It might only be 10 minutes because literally I know that I have a million things to do. She has a million things she needs to do. But let's be honest here. 10 minutes has never made the difference in anything. It doesn't matter. We can all, as busy as somebody is, you can always find 10 minutes. You may not be able to find multiple 10 minutes, for everybody, but you can find one 10-minute period. That should not be a problem. And if it is, then you're a lot busier than anybody who I've ever met.
Oh, I mean, it's just a compounding effect, just a little bit of
Yeah.
time every day. You're exactly right. At least being able to connect. I love this advice and I appreciate you bringing this up. And I'm glad that it's helped you guys. What would you see? You work with business owners, you work with other entrepreneurs in this field. What would you say is some of the biggest issues you have seen for other business owners, entrepreneurs, while they are trying to grow and scale their business and keep their balance?
I think that a lot of them don't really take the time to figure out who their client is and what their specific service line is. It's very appealing to look at and go, oh, you know what? Yeah, whatever you need, I can help you in this entire engineering field. It's not a problem. But you start to, branch out in too many pathways, and then you find out that you can never explain to somebody what you do. So it's okay to sort of add service lines, or you have a client that you've been working with and you sort of start to develop something new with them, or maybe you want to branch out. Because I think it is good to diversify to some degree. But I was working with one guy who had started out, or it was a side business, and he's looking to make it into his full time because he's not real thrilled with his engineering firm. But he doesn't really know who his client is, and he talks about very different. I won't get into details here. He might maybe listening, but the types of work that he wants to do are very different. Some of it is for municipal authorities, and then some of it is for high-end, sports car manufacturers. I'm like, those are so different. You never, those people are not going to be in the same room together. You can't sell that service at the same time. It's just so different that nobody really knows what you're doing. So it's hard to sort of make your name. I think that's sort of, I guess, a little bit of scatterbrained effect. Really, it's probably the worst thing I've seen them do with a young business trying to get off the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you have the same message, it's a lot easier to network. As you were talking about relationships, people know what you do, right? They're not constantly going, what is this guy doing? Right. You're finding the same people, you're interacting with them. You've created a brand that people can see online. And it makes sense. It connects with your offering. So there's a lot to be said about that. I mean, a lot of the takeaways I'm getting from you today is, niche really well. Find out who your niche is and be able to network with genuine long-term relationships. Keep some safeguards in place and boundaries in place that you can connect with the people you love the most. And be careful that you're not just kind of recreating yourself every few minutes in business, because it's going to be long-term a disaster. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think that it's okay to sort of look for other services within the same type of work. So, for example, I work on a lot of green loan programs for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Those are big, the big agency lenders, and so they have their program. I only work through big due diligence providers, and it goes through. They have a handful of lenders they're working through. That the engineering work that we do for that program is fairly similar to the work that I do within the SBA 504 world, which is for small businesses that are only, it's a business loan for real estate as opposed to an investment for multifamily. So the types of people that are using the program the types of businesses and the applications are very different. But it's all still within this whole, general financing world for which we're providing engineering support. And there's a lot of overlap between the players of the two. You're not going to have a shop that would be able to do both of those loan products. That's just not the way it works. But a lot of those people know each other, and there's a lot of overlap in terms of those networks. And that's where, to some degree, I've branched out in services, but really haven't branched out specifically to a completely new arena.
It makes sense. You're keeping the marketing solid and directional, and
Yes.
you may branch here or there, but you're staying very closely aligned with who you serve, and they know what you do. So I think that's brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on here, Saul, and I know that you're also the engineering mentor. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing there as the engineering mentor.
Right. That's something that I do want to expand to some degree, but a lot of that comes from the realization that I had amazing mentors, I had amazing guidance, supervisors throughout my career. And then coming to the realization that a lot of young engineers do not have that guidance. They're not getting the support they need, someone to hold their hand and just answer some of the basic questions for them. So right now, it's the website. I have a newsletter along with it. Once in a while, I run some courses, but I do enjoy doing public speaking at various conferences. The Association of Energy Engineers, I really enjoy talking at their student luncheon, because that's it's the energy crowd, but it's also the younger engineers. So it helps combine both of those worlds, and really reaching out to those younger engineers and knowing that, some of the feelings of imposter syndrome that they're having, totally normal. We've all had it. If an engineer tells you they never thought that way, they're either that one unicorn or they're lying, most likely lying, if I tell you the truth on that. But talk to them about the power of public speaking, about networking, other communication, these types of things, and how it's the technical skills that might get you the job. But as you're moving back and forth and want career mobility, it's very often these other non-technical skills that help come together with your technical skills to really help your career.
Love it. I'm so glad that you're a part of giving back. I think that's a big part of what we're called to do as entrepreneurs and business owners. I love giving back and speaking, training. It's one thing I do even for the younger generation. And so, I can see that that's an active part. I usually ask, at the end of the podcast, what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs? When I think that there's a lot of advice and guidance here, and the engineering mentor. If that's you, if that is something that you're interested, you can go to theengineeringmentor.com and check it out. Thanks for being here, Saul. Thank you for your advice and your input onto the Balanced Growth Show. Anything that you would like to leave us with, last thoughts or comments here before we go?
Right. So I think sort of on the topic that we've discussed, really, I think setting some priorities is the most important thing. And really, once you start to realize, okay, things are going to be okay, this is what's important to me, it will help you scale your business. It will help you have sort of just a much better calm, because otherwise it might be good in the short term, but long term, it's not very good. And also, I did mention that, I enjoy networking for the sake of networking. So I certainly am open to anybody who wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Certainly happy to connect with them. My feeling is many connections might be a neutral connection, but many connections you're going to gain from, and a really, really small percentage are going to be negative. So I feel like I'll just have a more of an open approach, and anybody who wants to connect, I'm happy to connect with them.
Love it. Appreciate this. Have a great one. Thank you for being on the show. Everyone who's listening, subscribe, share, like, tell us what you've been learning in the comments. We appreciate your listenership and enjoy bringing this kind of content to you every week here at the Balanced Growth Show. Until next time, remember, live life on purpose.